Hi guys, I'm Julia. I'm going to be running the plaster casting workshop today with the Wagonway Museum. We're going to be using some of the things that you've dug up and collected over the course of your dig, and we're going to set them into plaster to create some decorative tiles that we'll put all together at the end. Throughout the course of this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to mix plaster, how to pour it, colour it, and also how to finish it at the end so that you get a nice clean finish. Plaster is a really interesting material. It's something that is sort of all over the place and you might not even notice that it's there. It starts off as a white powder that gets mixed in with water to create a kind of surface finishing slush. So it's used to make walls totally smooth. But also it's used to create cornicing on ceilings and ceiling roses as well. You'll probably start noticing it everywhere once you see where it is and what it looks like. So a little bit about me. I am an artist based in Glasgow and I work loads with materials and traditional making techniques. So I work loads with plaster, but also with other forms of casting and with metal and woodwork as well. Just a few health and safety things as well when you're using plaster. It's a really fine dusty material that can kind of get everywhere. So we've provided some masks in the kit. If you didn't get one in your kit, just come see me. I'll be based at the Wagonway Museum all day and we'll have spare masks and everything. If you can do this outside, that would be better, but if not to worry, it's not massive quantities that you'll be using. Also really important to remember is not to pour this down the sink. We'll be using some water in this, but make sure that you never wash out your bowls into the sink because you'll end up blocking the sink. So to get rid of this at the end, just make sure you throw it directly into the bin or let it set and then crack it out at the end. If you have any questions or you run out of materials or anything at all, just come and see me. I will be based at the Wagonway Museum throughout the 2 days, and I will have extras of plaster and pigments and some bowls and things, and also some extra bits and pieces that have been dug up by the Wagonway Museum that you'll be able to set into your pieces too. Cool, well let's get started. So in your kit you should have a bag of plaster, some wooden mixing sticks, some sandpaper and some pigments, 4 pigments, a yellow, a red, a blue and a black. You also have a dust mask in your kit and some blue tack. From around your house you will have to look for some plastic containers. Really you could use anything as long as it has a bit of flex in it. So here I've got some various pots for food and also some plastic cups and some plastic juice bottles. Really anything with an interesting pattern as well, which will be nice and interesting. It will make nice markings in your mould. Same with this one. Okay. You will also have anything that you've collected during your dig, and that will be anything from pieces of ceramic to coloured glass, some rocks, or some wood, or really anything that you found will make a nice impression in your cast. So first of all we're going to prep some of the pots and stick them into, and stick your fragments into it. So using your blue tack, you tear off small pieces and then you can start collaging into the bottom of your containers. So you just press it in and there, and you can keep sort of adding them I'm going to do a variety of different materials. If you cover parts of it with blue tack, anything that's touching the surface of your container won't get covered in plaster, so that will block it off. But really this is just to stop your things floating up to the top. So try and use some of the curves maybe in your objects. So you see that one's got a nice curve there. So I'm just going to stick that on the inside where it's nice and curved, so I can follow the shape of the mold. And I think I'm going to stick this one in there too. There we go, there's one. I'm going to prep another one. Just a square one this time. And I'm going to use this piece here. And this patterned piece of glass, which I'm going to stick on 2 bits. There. You can stick it, remember you can stick things up the side as well. And I'm going to put this piece of wood as well. Shouldn't turn it that way. And maybe some brown glass. Put them nice and close. Maybe make a little star shape. Just like that. And maybe this nice shiny black one as well. Okay, once you're happy with how you've assembled your bowls, you can start thinking about the plaster. We'll do one at a time. So I'm going to use one of these small containers, and I'm going to use that to mix my plaster in. And that's just so that I can throw this straight away in the bin afterwards, and it's nothing precious. So we're going to start with some water first. So pour some water into your container. Don't pour too much. Make sure that it's less than half, because when you add the plaster it will start filling up a lot more. Now the plaster will start reacting with the water once you start mixing it. So for the minute, keep your water in your cup very, very still. And I'm just going to use an old spoon to spoon it out of the bag. And then gently sprinkle it into your container. And we'll let it just sink down to the bottom. And you'll use quite a lot of plaster actually whilst you're doing this. So we'll keep letting it sink to the bottom until it starts to show on the surface a little bit. Okay, so as you can see there, the plaster is beginning to show little islands right on the top of the water. and that's what we're after. That's when you know that you've got enough in it. So using one of your wooden sticks, you can stir it. And make sure you get rid of all of the lumps in it. And really properly mix it up. And then you can test the thickness to see if it's alright. So you see it's coated my fingers properly, but it's still nice and runny and very liquid. If it's too watery at this point, you can add a bit more plaster, and if it's too plastery, you can just add a little bit more water. But you have to do it quite quickly, because once it begins to set, then you won't be able to add either or. Okay, when you're happy with it, you can just gently pour it around your objects. Until you filled the whole thing. There we go. And that's one of them poured. And then just put that aside until it's totally set, and that should be about an hour. So what we'll do now is a coloured one. So we'll do the same process again. Pour your water in first, then add your plaster. Making sure not to stir your mixture until you think you've got enough plaster in it. Almost there, so it's beginning to take a bit longer to be swallowed up by the water. So we'll add a little bit more there. And here we go, see the little islands just on the surface. So same again, we're going to just mix it up, making sure to get rid of all the lumps, really scraping all of the edges there. And now, working quickly, just so that it doesn't start setting, we'll start playing around with some of the pigments. I'm going to try to make a purple kind of colour, so I'm going to use the blue. I'm just using really few little drops, because it's a really strong, colourful pigment. And then add some bits of purple as well, sorry, of red, to make the purple. And then just stirring that in till it's properly mixed. And you can see whether you want to add a bit more colour to it. I think mine needs a bit more red in it. And maybe just one more drop of blue. Alright, always stirring it to make sure that it doesn't set too quickly. So, when you're happy with the colour, then you can start pouring it into your prepared container again, gently, and being careful not to really throw it in there. So I've not mixed mine properly, but see, you've got some nice streaks in that, which will come out really nicely as well. So if you do want to leave some streaks in your colour, then that's fine. Alright, so now we'll just wait for these two to dry, and that should be about an hour. You should keep them really still and keep them level, and you'll notice over the course of the hour that they'll heat up a bit and then cool down. You'll be able to feel it just on the surface there. And then we'll pop them out and clean them up. So after you've waited about an hour for your moulds to dry, you'll feel that they'll have gone hard. They'll have heated up and cooled down. So once they suddenly feel cold again, you can start taking them out of the mould. I would do this just by wiggling it a little bit, and they should just push out. Just like that. So you can see where you had all of your blue tack parts, and some of the bits are beginning to creep out as well. If you're struggling to get your thing out of the mould, just cut straight through the plastic. And then we'll get the other one out. There we go. So you can use these again. I also did another one just to see the pattern. There you go. So this one's not got any pieces stuck in it, but you can see how well the plaster takes up the pattern of the box. So this is when you can start really exposing some of your objects that you've set into your plaster. So what we'll do is, I'm just using some normal screws. That I've got lying around in the house, and that can just help to scratch in and expose your found objects. The plaster should be pretty soft and easy to work with. It's a lot easier to do this when the plaster is still a bit humid. You can feel it a little bit. You'll be able to use the back of a spoon as well. That can help get some of these out. Really, any tools, anything that you have around the house should be able to scratch into it. And then you'll be able to use some of the wet and dry sandpaper as well, just to smooth it down. Now with wet and dry, you have to make sure that you always wet it. If you use it dry, then you create a lot of dust that can be quite nasty. So just dip your sandpaper in the water, and then you can scratch into it. And it will make nice, smooth finishes. So make sure you can just keep working at it and get rid of all of the glue tack that you'd used just to stick your objects down. And just use some water to clean up any of the excess plaster as well. So here we have it, the finished pieces from the ones that I just did. I'll just show you some of them a bit closer. So as you can see, I've done some carvings in it, which I've just done with a screw, and then exposed the bits that I'd set in a bit more. and then smoothed over the edges, just over there. And that's the finished piece for that one. And then similarly with my coloured one, I've exposed the bits that were set in and carved some patterns into the plaster as well. It's interesting to see how different materials react to it, and you can see with some of them that you can see right through the glass as well, straight to the plaster. And there we go. If you have any questions, I will be at the Wagon Way Museum. I will have extra tools to help you finish things, or if you need any inspiration, I will be there with loads of examples and some extra bits and bobs just to help you out. I will also be there for if you run out of any materials. I'll have extras of everything there, or if you just want to come by and say hello and have a chat. Thank you so much, and thank you again for taking part in this, and I look forward to seeing your pieces.